There's something that Dr. Tamar Bryant said. It was on a podcast I was listening to with Mel Robbins. She said, the reason you feel unsettled is because you are not supposed to settle. I heard that and it seemed like so many things just clicked for me. I'm trying to muscle through life. I have the knowledge that God is trying to push me in a different direction when I feel uncomfortable. But yet, hearing her say the reason you feel unsettled is because you're not supposed to settle, it was like, duh. Why am I trying to make situations work that are not supposed to be working? The time is now to boldly step forward, love with intensity, and embark on the journey to create the best version of yourself. Let's breach these barriers together. Hello, family. Welcome back to the BreEvolve podcast. Thank you for spending your time with me. I truly appreciate it. It does not go overlooked. If you are new, my name is Bree, and here we are all about becoming our best selves together and connecting with God. Today, I got to call myself and maybe a few of y'all out on our BS. Yes. I swear I get so many revelations from the Bible. It's crazy. So I was reading in Exodus, and honey, it told me about myself as I was judging what was happening here. So let me just give you a little bit of background. God gives Moses the task of freeing the Israelites from slavery in Egypt. Moses and Aaron go to Egypt following God's command. So they go to talk to Pharaoh and tell the Pharaoh that God said to release these slaves, the Israelites, so they can go and worship God in the wilderness for 3 days. They go to the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh says, no, absolutely not. And strike one was blood. In Exodus 7, starting in chapter 20, it says, Moses and Aaron did exactly as God commanded them. Aaron raised his staff and hit the water in the Nile with Pharaoh and his servants watching. All the water in the Nile turned into blood. The fish in the Nile died. The Nile stank, and the Egyptians couldn't drink the Nile water. The blood was everywhere in Egypt. So that was strike one. And Pharaoh was still like, nope, not buying it. So after Pharaoh said no, strike two was the frogs. In Exodus 8, it says, God said to Moses, go to Pharaoh and tell him God's message. Release my people so they can worship me. If you refuse to release them, I'm warning you, I'll hit the whole country with frogs. The Nile will swarm with frogs. They'll come up into your houses, into your bedrooms, into your beds, into your servants' quarters, among the people, into your ovens and pots and pans. They'll be all over everyone, frogs everywhere, on and in everything. So while God is doing all of this, he's protecting the Israelites from anything that he is doing to Egypt. So Pharaoh saw what happened and he called in Moses and Aaron and was like, okay, pray to your God so he can take away these frogs and I will release your people. Pharaoh went back on his word. It says in verse 15, but when Pharaoh saw that he had some breathing room, he got stubborn again and wouldn't listen to Moses and Aaron, just as God had said. So strike three were gnats. God said to Moses, tell Aaron, take your staff and strike the dust. The dust will turn into gnats all over Egypt. After the gnats, Pharaoh was still like, nah, not releasing them. So strike four were flies. Moses delivers God's message and says, release my people so they can worship me. If you don't release my people, I'll release swarms of flies on you, your servants, your people, and your homes. The houses of the Egyptians and even the ground under their feet will be thick with flies. But when this happens, I'll set Goshen where my people live aside as a sanctuary. No flies in Goshen. That will show you that I am God in this land. I'll make a sharp distinction between your people and mine. The sign will occur tomorrow. So Pharaoh came back and he was like, okay, you can take your people, go to worship, but don't go too far. Now pray for me and get these flies away and I'll release them. So Moses did that. He prayed, the flies went away. And Pharaoh was like, nah, not releasing them. So then strike five came, the animals. So God tells Moses to tell the people, if you refuse to release them and continue to hold on to them, I'm giving you fair warning. God will come down hard on your livestock out in the fields, horses, donkeys, camels, cattle, sheep, striking them with a severe disease. God will draw a sharp line between the livestock of Israel and the livestock of Egypt. Not one animal that belongs to the Israelites will die. So the next day it happened, all the livestock of the Egyptians died, and not one of the Israelites died. Still, Pharaoh was like, no, not releasing them. Strike six is the boils. Boils erupted all over animals and people in Egypt. but none of them touched the Israelites. Still, even after this, Pharaoh said no, he's not releasing the Israelites. Strike 7 was the hail. So now God tells Moses to tell Pharaoh this. This time I'm going to strike you and your servants and your people with the full force of my power, so you'll get it into your head there's no one like me anywhere in all the earth. You know that by now I could have struck you and your people with deadly disease, and there will be nothing left of you, not a trace. But for one reason only, I've kept you on your feet, to make you recognize my power so that my reputation spreads all in the earth. You are still building yourself up at my people's expense. You are not letting them go. So here's what's going to happen. At this time tomorrow, I'm sending a terrific hailstorm. There's never been a storm like this in Egypt from the day of its founding until now. So get your livestock under the roof, everything exposed in the open fields, people and animals will die when the hailstorm comes. All of the Pharaoh's servants who had respect for God's word got their workers and animals under cover as fast as they could, but those who didn't take God's word seriously left their workers and animals out in the fields. This kind of got Pharaoh's attention. He asked Moses and Aaron to come, and he says this to them: I've sinned for sure this time. God is in the right, and I and my people are in the wrong. Pray to God. We've had enough of God's thunder and hail. I'll let you go. The sooner you're out, the better. So the hail stopped, and as soon as Pharaoh saw that it stopped, he said, no, not releasing your people. Strike 8 were the locusts. God says they'll cover every square inch of the ground. No one will be able to see the ground. They'll devour everything left over from the hailstorm, and they'll invade your houses, filling the houses of your servants, filling every house in Egypt. Nobody will have ever seen anything like this from the time your ancestors first set foot on the soil until today. Pharaoh asks Moses and Aaron to come back again, and he says, I've sinned against your God and against you. Overlook my sin one more time. Pray to your God to get me out of this. Get death out of here. As soon as the locusts were gone, Pharaoh said, no, I'm not releasing the Israelites. So then strike 9 is darkness. It says, thick darkness descended unto the land of Egypt for 3 days. Nobody could see anything. Nobody could see anybody. For 3 days, no one could so much as move except for the Israelites. They had light where they were living. Pharaoh called in Moses and Aaron again. Go and worship your God. Leave the livestock and herds behind, but go and take your children. He's trying to bargain with them. So it seems like he's like, okay, for real this time, we got to do something. So he's trying to make it so it fits his needs. So you can take a little bit of what you're asking for. You're not taking a lot. I'm not going to do all of what God said. I'm going to just do a little bit. Oof, that's a word right there, honey. When Moses and Aaron didn't agree to just doing a little bit of what God said, Pharaoh said, no, I can't let them go then. Strike 10 is death. God said to Moses, I'm going to hit Pharaoh in Egypt one final time, and then he'll let you go. When he releases you, that will be the end of Egypt for you. He won't be able to get rid of you fast enough. It says, at midnight, God struck every firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sits on his throne, right down to the firstborn of the prisoner locked up in jail, also the firstborn of the animals. Pharaoh called in Moses and Aaron once again. He says, get out of here and be done with you, you and your Israelites. Go, worship God on your own terms. And yes, take your sheep and cattle as you've insisted, but go and bless me. He asks them one more time to bless me, and he actually lets them go. So I read all of that, and my mind was like, what? Like, why did it take him so long to get it through his head? Like, all this is happening. If you just do what God is asking you to do, you'll be okay. And then I was like, I don't know if this was God trying to put me in check, but child, it was strong in my spirit. Like, girl, you ain't no better. I hate to say it. So, in the moments of distress and dysfunction and chaos, Pharaoh was like, okay, I'll do what you asked. But as soon as that pressure let up, he was like, oh, I'm good now. There's no need to change anything. Why would I do that if I'm okay right now? So I realized that I'm way more like Pharaoh than I would like to believe. I'm not even going to say I was. I'm more intentional about not being like that anymore. So God puts me in uncomfortable situations because he wants me to move in a different direction. So once I've gotten some relief from something, so like if I had a health issue and I started to eat better, started to work out, started to, just take care of my mind, try to decrease my stress, I saw improvement and I was good from what the doctors will say. As soon as I got some relief, I say not immediately, but maybe like some months, I got relief and I was feeling good and I was starting to incorporate those bad habits back into my lifestyle that God was pushing me away from. So, like the eating certain things, or the drinking, or the not exercising like I should. I started to go back to my old ways of what God was telling me I needed to change. Or being uncomfortable in a relationship, whether it's romantic or platonic, like God is pushing me to use my communication skills better. Things start going good, and then I go back into old habits of not communicating as much or as well as I did to get out of that uncomfortable situation. Not learning from these tests or from these things that God has put in front of me. It's just foolish. And I looked at that. It was put in front of me reading Exodus, and I was like, what is wrong with the Pharaoh? Why is he not getting it? Listen, I had so much to say. And then I was like, wait, it's easy to say it when you're just reading it on pages. If I put my situations on paper and just read it out, I would be like to myself, girl, what is wrong with you? Or if it was someone else, what is wrong with them? Like, don't they get it? Don't they understand? If they just do this, they'll have relief. If they just do this, they could live their best lives. Where's the disconnect? I don't understand. It's easy to judge other things or other situations, other people, but I really feel like we need to take that judgment that we're putting onto other people and apply it to different aspects in our life. Like, we may not be going through that exact same predicament, but what characteristics are you pointing out that could be in your life as well? Take it as an opportunity to go inward instead of spewing out negativity towards others or about others if it's not to them directly. Like, bring all that negative energy and figure out where it's coming from, put it back into your life, put the pieces, figure out all your stuff, and then help your neighbor. Whoever it is you about to go judge, just help them out. They might need a little bit of help. That wasn't even a part of this today, but God put that on my spirit. Just help your neighbor. Don't talk about them, because you may need a neighbor to help you in times when you're struggling to do something, or you may not even see where the disconnect is sometimes. Having a loving person to tell you, hey, I noticed this. Don't be negative about it. Go and talk to them. Help them out. And I know God will bless you. This is what I want you guys to do. A little activity. We're going to have some fun. So think of 1 to 3 things that God has been trying to pull you out of, or trying to get you to change your circumstances around, or change your environment, your situation, whatever it is. You know you're uncomfortable, and you know God is trying to change the trajectory of the way you're going. So think of 1 to 3 areas in your life that you feel uncomfortable, and then think of some things that will allow you to get to a better space in that area, and be intentional about doing it. Then I want you to list out things that you could do to get more comfortable in those spaces. So I want you to get very, very specific, because if we leave things without like a when or a how or a timeline to get it done, it ain't going to get done. Okay. So I need y'all to put a timeline behind it. I need y'all to put when you will do it, or what you would do instead of what you're trying to stop doing during those times. I get very specific and intentional about getting more comfortable, because I feel like your blessings are connected to making those changes. There's something that Dr. Tamar Bryant said. It was on a podcast I was listening to with Mel Robbins. She said, the reason you feel unsettled is because you are not supposed to settle. I heard that and it seemed like so many things just clicked for me. I'm trying to muscle through life, or trying to muscle through and get through. If I feel uncomfortable, which I know God is trying to tell me something, but yet I have the knowledge that God is trying to push me in a different direction when I feel uncomfortable. But yet hearing her say the reason you feel unsettled is because you're not supposed to settle, it was like, duh. Why am I trying to make situations work that are not supposed to be working? I need to make the situation change so that I can feel settled and feel comfortable where I am. The feeling of uncomfortable or feeling unsettled, it's not supposed to be there, because it's supposed to make you into a different person or change you into a different area environment. It's supposed to move you in a direction that God is trying to get you to move. Sitting in it and trying to just make it through day by day is not the answer. So we need to figure out where we feel uncomfortable or where we feel unsettled and get intentional with changing the circumstance. Because you're not supposed to feel that way. You're supposed to feel joy and peace. And doing what God is telling you to do is not going to always be that, but sitting in that uncomfortableness or unsettled space, that's not what God wants for you. And you shouldn't want that for yourself either. So all that to say, I will really like it if y'all did that exercise. Do it when you're having a moment to yourself, journal about it, put it in your notes in your phone. 1 to 3 things you feel unsettled, areas you feel unsettled in your life. If there's more, list all of them. If you're feeling good, list all of them. If you feel like you don't have the time, I really just want you to do at least 1, 2, or 3, at least, so you can focus on those things and get a little more comfortable in your life. I love you guys so much. And thanks for allowing me to just speak with you all the time. It helps me so much. And I don't even think y'all know, it'd be like therapy for me. It's not replacing therapy because no, therapy is therapy. But just speaking out loud, your thoughts, getting into reality, it really helps me. And I really hope it helps you guys too. So I love you guys, and I will see you next time.